Good evening. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Out my way, we're doing a sit and talk because we had a mist, very mysterious out there, and it was cold, and it was rainy, and then I had the demands of a case I'm working on for a client I have a great deal of affection for, and I wanted to write a powerful brief on his behalf. So it's not until now I've had a chance to talk to you. Um, I had the occasion once to meet with Michael Caine, the actor, and it was because I was working on a presidential campaign, Ted Kennedy's, in the primaries in New York, and one of the publicity guys that I was with was getting together with him, and he took me along. And I asked him about the movie that he did. What's it all about, Alfie? And that is the question, right? That's a great question. It wasn't really, I didn't think it was answered in the movie, but it introduced us to Caine. It's some difficult things, and it may not have been avant-garde, but it was different than usual. Maybe like life. What is life all about? So if we defined ourselves by truth, with aberrations, that's a nice hat, dear. I've never misled anybody about a hat I saw, so that was a safe choice for me. But we're talking about much bigger issues, you see, because how we interact with each other, how we trust each other, is reflected in our community devices. Do we contribute money to a homeless couple? Do we take in a family relative because they can't take care of themselves? Do we stop for a moment and talk to someone who seems lost and adrift? That's not America today. That's not America. When I was in grammar school in the 8th grade, I entered my first oratorical contest. I did it because the nun in the class, I guess because I talked so much in class, thought I should do that. And when I did it, I got the sense that when you spoke, you gave license to others to think things that not everybody is saying. And the speech that I gave, the first one, was started with something like, "Some evening when you were in New York, walk up Broadway from Times Square. To a visitor, a friend, it seems like quite a place. Flashing red neons catch your eyes. Blinking, blinding rays of white and yellow lights beckon you to noisy bistros. Hard, nerveless taxi drivers honk their taxi through a noisy snarl of traffic, casting tips to smiling doormen. But to many overseas and here, this is America." In other words, America is this shining diamond or so forth. But in that speech, there was also a section in which we talked about Khrushchev. And in it, I described him as he turned his pudgy body toward America and toward us and wagged his finger and said, "We will bury you." So that's an old reality. What's the present reality? The present reality is our alliances are frayed, F-R-A-Y-E-D, in part by Trump. Our basic values, if somebody's convicted, they should stay in prison, but this president's going to pardon them. So he's prosecuted and been convicted in the state court, and Trump, wants to then investigate and prosecute those who investigated and prosecuted him. We say we want to cooperate with the world, but instead we're using tariffs to suppress them, which is a capitalistic tool for business, and doesn't care what the consumer has to pay, which is to do without or to pay increased costs. And it favors our local suppliers, if you will, but maybe not. So there is a whole combine of these issues, and we're asked to sort themselves out individually when we don't have the leadership to help us get to that point, to make it work. Now, a couple of days ago, maybe it was yesterday, I said that where is the hope in all of this? Where do we get the order? How do we end the chaos? How do we elevate the principles that we think are American, found in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Leaders have to come forward. So Gavin Newsom is one of those people we learned today. Not surprising, because I said I thought it would come from California or Pennsylvania. It's not a wild guess. There are plenty of indications that was true. But now he is at least talking to enough people, because it's being reported he's considering how should he tactically and strategically approach Trump. We're hearing more and more of groups that have issues they care about coming forward. So say you care about civil rights. Give $10 to the ACLU if you can. Say you're concerned about the hungry. I'm sure in the county, wherever you live, there's a place that you could take 1 week's meal and give it there. They probably prefer cans and certain other things that don't spoil. So you study those rules and you give that. What that does is it uplifts our spirits individually. What it also does is it creates an ethos, a feeling among us that we're all in this together, and that there's a criminal in the West Wing, and our mission is to see that we kick his ass out of there as soon as we can. We have to talk common sense. Now, the notion that thought doesn't matter. I was espousing something at a Rotary one evening, and I was actually sharing the rostrum with a judge, and we were talking about certain matters. And it had to do with what do we do about terrorism? This is years ago now. And somebody in the audience who I liked and trusted said, your problem, John, is that you're thinking in your head. And I think the problem is that we don't have enough thinking in their head, accepting things. And we have enough hosts who don't themselves question, so they're not leading people through syllogisms about what's happening. So where does that leave me? It leaves me, all of us, in saying that what it's all about is how you and I get along, how you and I deal with conflict, that you and I talk the truth in order to get the best outcomes, that we care for each other without regard for the color of our skin, what neighborhood we came from, what race we are, and what dreams we had. James Baldwin had a great thing about race, I thought. And it was symbolic, but he said, looking at another person, looking at his skin, he said, when you look at my skin and your skin, but everything else that I want and you want are the same. A family, a job, an income, shelter, health. These are the keystone of a good government. A government in which some people have bought the government to lever it to give them even more money than they have, more than they could ever use, taking it away from those who provide the productivity to make that income possible. That's not America. It hasn't been America. And the distance is growing between and among us. We hear people saying, you really shouldn't, you don't have to go to college. Well, you don't have to go to college. It is not for everybody. My younger brother, he didn't go past high school, nor my father, nor my mother, nor most of the people in my neighborhood. But it was right for me, because writing and math and speaking were the tools that I didn't fully appreciate that gave me opportunities to do other things. So a person who has an instinct for a college helped them figure out how to do it, because that person is going to contribute to society. Anyhow, the chances are better that they will. So in my rambling about what's it all about, what it's all about is caring for one another, helping each other, giving them a leg up. I told a story, I don't remember if it was in print or I talked about it, but meaning the messages I send on social media. But there was a guy I watched who didn't seem to get along with everybody else. And yet he did. He'd play in these games, and he didn't care how, it seemed to me, he didn't care. He would take off all his clothes to be part of a game. And he was totally selfless about it. And he tried to entertain, and he did all these things. And my first reaction was we wouldn't have anything in common. But when he took off his shirt for one of these episodes in the game that they were playing on the ship, I saw there were two light bulbs on either side of his belly, and his stomach protruded, not unlike a lot of men at a certain age in America. And I was just curious about those bumps. So I went over and I talked to him, and like I'm dressed now, I had a jacket and a tie on. And he didn't seem surprised when I asked him what that was from. It was from diabetes. And then one thing led to another, and he told me, I've had a rough time. He had had a rough time. And he said, I had a heart attack about a year ago. I have diabetes. It presents problems to me. And I lost my best friend. And I said, who was that? I said, my best friend was my father. I was with him every day. He was so good. And he said, I have a wife, and she takes good care of me, and so forth. These were things you couldn't see of him when he was playing the games. But he was an entirely different person in our conversation. There are people all around us like that. They are not the takers like Trump and the bizarre number of people that share the world with him. For them, what it's all about is whatever it is that fattens them, feeds them funds, hurts others, in the case of Trump. These people dwell among us, but they are the true enemies of the people, even though we are cast as that because we care about each other. So, when somebody asks you what's this all about, it's about freedom to get along with everybody else. It's about being treated equally, equal justice before the law. It's about participating in a democracy. It's not about being told what to do. It is to allow us to create the art that is our life. And that is perhaps the single most contribution we can make. And every day we ask the question from the movie Michael Caine was in, what it's all about. And if we examine our life, we'll find ourselves on what is not a random walk, but is in fact a walk that seems so obvious when we look back on it after 20, 30, 50, 60 years. So, forgive my meanderings, but it seems to me we're at a time when we can't use the current symbol system to know what's going on, because it's false. It gives us a false sense that the rules we have still apply in a world in which Trump doesn't obey any of these rules. And so we need rules to combat this toxin in the system, to cure it and to sustain ourselves and to protect ourselves from it, and in the same way to be with each other in the best way that we can. So I hope this wasn't too much of a diversion from what I normally do. But taking this week off, as I told a friend today, the first day I didn't know what to do with myself because I wanted to be doing things, and there weren't things I could wrap my mind around. And then that led to me using the time to think and to have these episodes as I did with that gentleman. And so I wished him well, and I talked to him a little bit about how when you lose someone, as is inevitable, you have to remember the good times. And when, like an underground river, it surfaces, you have to try to remember the good times. And so I find as I get older, I think more of my dad than my mom, in the sense of what conversations I'd want to have with my father, because I had so many with my mom, I think. So that's enough for now. Good evening. It's great visiting with you. Be well. Bye-bye.